we go, Mr. Chair. YouTube is now streaming, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Matt. Well, good evening, councillors and members of staff. Welcome to this evening's Planning and Property and Services Committee. Before we go any further, I'd just like the acting clerk to explain the purpose for this meeting. Please, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In case anyone is watching for the record, from May 2020 to the 6th of May 2021, the Emergency Coronavirus Act allowed councils to make decisions remotely. Unfortunately, the government didn't continue that power from the 6th of May 2021 onwards. Therefore, before then, on the 12th of April, Beverley Town Council resolved to delegate any decisions to the acting town clerk other than those that have to be made by law by councillors. It's been agreed to continue holding meetings, and that any decisions made by councillors in meetings will be recommendations rather than resolutions, and will act as recommendations to advise the acting town clerk, I myself, in decision making. So it might sound quite convoluted and technical, but that enables us to still officially make decisions through myself as acting clerk, but everything guided by yourselves as the elected councillors.
Thank you, Matt. So the next item then is to receive apologies for absence.
I have councillors Thomas Dell, David Boynton and Dan Willis.
Thank you. Declarations, item 3, to record declarations of interest by any member of the council in respect of agenda items listed below. Members declaring interest should identify the agenda item and type of interest being declared. Item 3B, to note dispensations given to any member in respect of the agenda items listed below. Now, item 4, to note the minutes of the Planning, Property and Services meeting held on Monday the 30th. These were approved and signed on the 4th of May at the annual council meeting. And item 5, you've all had these delegated responses. I take it that you're all in agreement with those. Yeah. Yeah. David.
Just one item, Mr. Chair. In terms of applications, and I believe there is one in here where work has already gone ahead and we've been obliged to accept, and this seems to come up reasonably regularly. What recourse do we have to actually, beyond just making a note in here, to making our feelings felt about this? Because were this to become common practice, as it might do, the whole planning process would seem to be undermined.
Well, in answer to your question, David, this has cropped up over this last couple of years at least, if not before. We can ask the clerk to write to the senior planning, well, the director of planning, and ask him if the East Riding can issue to contractors, consultants and what have you, that before any application can be considered, it must, no work has to be started. I hear what you're saying, and I guess we'll get the same answer back that we have done in the past. Unfortunately, there is nothing that the East Riding can do other than if they get a report of a property being altered, then the enforcement officer goes down, and it's at that point that the enforcement officer makes the owner of the property put in an application. Matt, you want to just say?
There's very little we can actually do, because it's not the East Riding's fault either that these things happen. It's the individual applicants, and we have to view each one on its own merits. Whether there are some that are retrospective and some that aren't. There are multiple reasons as to why retrospective applications happen. Some of that in completely good faith, people haven't realised due to it's a very minor application. One we saw, I think, a few months ago was rebuilding of a wall in a residential area. Others, more cynically, work begins beforehand for multiple reasons, because it can become a fait accompli. But there's nothing that we can really do en masse regarding retrospective applications, as indeed there's nothing the East Riding can really do on that either. And the law is that I could forcibly build a house in someone else's garden without permission. I would then have to seek permission afterwards, and chances are I'd have to demolish it. But the law regarding planning and any application that is made after the incident, there's nothing that really covers it as a whole.
No. Ian?
It's fair to say that there are some businesses that specialise in negotiating building and property law, finding loopholes and ways of getting around the system. The East Riding aren't very good at policing it, and also we should be aware that there is a big drive on to use brownfield sites more and more and more, and the planning laws are actually being considerably relaxed in the near future. So unfortunately, it goes, and we have had this matter raised many times, it goes back to we can write a strong letter basically, and that is virtually all we're able to do.
So following on from what, David.
The East Riding, of course, can refuse these applications regardless of the fact that they are retrospective, but they hardly ever do. They hardly ever even try to enforce some aspect. There was a case some years back where a developer accidentally built 2 extra houses, and he got away with it.
Right. Just going back to what Ian was saying, and if members wish, we'll get Matt to write a strongly worded letter to Alan Menzies saying that this has cropped up yet again before us, just expressing our concerns.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not entirely sure what I can actually write, because the East Riding don't submit the applications. Members of the public and individual applicants submit the applications. I can write saying that we know there are increasing number, but there's nothing that the East Riding can actually do other than to say, yes, we've got your letter. So I'm not sure what purpose it would serve. If councillors recommend, I can do it, but I'm just not sure for what purpose and how exactly we would phrase it. I would phrase a letter making an argument to them about something that's out of their control, and they can't necessarily make any action on, because it's down to individual applicants.
The point is, though, Matt, is that we see this happening all too often, and something is not happening with the officers at County Hall, and I think there's a bit of leeway with the enforcement officer. It's been reported that such and such a person has been seen digging footings and building an extension or something, and then they go around, they discover they haven't got the appropriate planning permission, so they pay them a visit, and they say, well, work's got to stop, but if you submit a planning application, then we'll see how that goes. There's no, they don't have any. Well, I don't think they've got any power to tell them to fill the trenches in and do like anybody else would do, put in an application. Ian.
Well, if you look at one of the matters on the agenda, the old Jacko's scrapyard, that is complete and working as a change of use for caravan storage. And obviously it'll impact on the traffic and businesses down there. And it's, you know, nobody more than me was a big fan of wandering around Jacko's scrapyard. That's sad to see it go. But they've done significant works there in a very short space of time, without any approval. And it's just sad. And I think it goes right, Mr. Chair, to what you're saying in terms of the enforcement side of planning.
So it's a correspondence more about concerns regarding lack of enforcement rather than people submitting retrospectively.
Yeah.
Right. In that case, I will endeavour to formulate a letter to the East Riding regarding that.
Yeah.
Very, very brave, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, then that's that. Then no more comments on the delegated responses. No. So then item 6, then planning applications. That you see Matt's put some suggested responses. Westwood Park Residential Care, Forlangham Close, the wanting building consisting of 51 retirement living plus extra care departments and 1 guest suite. Including erection of a substation and carports to the southern boundary, and associated access, car parking, amenity space, landscaping, following the demolition of the existing buildings. Now, this went to full council, as you will recall, and we objected with the initial application. And there is this is a revised application, and the deadline has been extended until this Thursday. So we have to respond by this Thursday. David Horsley and then Ian. Unmute, David.
Yeah. The first time, our main objection was overdevelopment of the site. Far too many people being crammed into a small space where they would inevitably need considerably more parking spaces than there are at the moment. And yet the number of parking spaces is in reality being reduced. I think that we have to repeat that, if anything, if we can find a way of doing so even more forcibly.
Yeah, thank you. Ian.
Well, we had a very good presentation from the residents down there, and they had a very forcible argument as to how narrow the access would be and how many people and the car parking. And there's absolutely no way that we can in any way support this, I don't believe.
No. Any more comments? So are you proposing then, Ian, that we object to this proposal?
If members are so minded, I think we should. It's at least they've asked for permission, haven't they? But it seems to be, with the extension and the manipulation on the amendments and stuff like that, they're trying to squeeze even more out of it, I'm afraid.
So wording along the lines of Beverley Town Council reconfirms its objection to this application, whilst noting the amendment still reconfirms its objections to this application.
Yeah.
Yeah. The amendments are in no way an improvement to the situation for the residents.
And are you seconding that then, David Ardsley?
I am, and also to draw attention to the objections from local residents and the problems that they see arising.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, Matt. If you could put that in your correspondence, please. So are we all in agreement with that? Yeah. Right. Thank you. Vanessa 21. 22 Saturday Market, installation of replacement door and windows to the front and installation of a servery window. Our suggestion is that we have no objection to this application.
They're only doing what they need to allow people to buy their products safely in the current environment, and they're not the first people to have arranged for the old traditional style
stable door.
Yeah. But at least they haven't done it before they bolted. Moving on.
Are we in agreement then? Yeah. Thank you. 187 Groville Road, certificate of lawfulness for proposed erection of a single-storey extension to the rear and side, dormer window to the rear, roof lights to front, and loft conversion. And again, we have no objection. That's the suggestion. We in agreement? Yeah. Garage block adjacent to 56 northbound without alteration and conversion of garages, stroke former stable to former dwelling. Are we agreed? Yeah. Thank you.
This is a historic block, but it's been so far buggered about with, if I can use a phrase, that it isn't worth trying to keep what little remains of the original structure.
No. Are you in agreement with that then? Yeah. Jackson.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with most of the comments that have been made. Thank you.
Jackson's vehicle dismantlers. Ian's rightly mentioned about the change of use from a scrapyard and siting of two-storey office block, single-storey training classroom, toilet block, and 3 shipping containers for storage, and installation of an electric substation following levelling of the ground and installation of hardcore. Yeah. We're in agreement with that. Yeah. 33 Swimo Lane, again, erection of a 2.2 high boundary fence with 1.8 metre high entrance gate to the front, and erection of a timber carport to the side. Part of it is retrospective application, no objection. Carmel Cottage, Denton Street, erection of 5 dwellings and 4 apartments, with associated parking, access, landscaping and infrastructure following outline planning permission. And the note is we need to consider the density of the application and all the other aspects that's involved. Would you like to comment, Matt? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, when you actually look at the application compared with other similar applications where people are building more than one house on land. This is quite a sizable plot with appropriate parking developed for each property. It seems fairly well laid out. It doesn't seem overly developed, but councillors might who know the area better might have a different opinion. But it does seem that consideration has been taken into access, parking, and how much can actually be done on that site. Potentially more could be built on that site, but it would reduce the accessibility, it reduce the number of parking spaces, and be really over density for the area.
Yeah. Ian?
Well, I'd endorse everything that the acting town clerk has said. And in terms of, I mean, I'm fully aware of some of another gentleman's developments, and this is spacious, and it isn't going to cause great problems. They are putting in a new access road. It's not really going to impact at all on Denton Street, although the poor residents who live in the side beside the terraces that are down Denton Street, again, will have more through traffic. But it's a well thought out, having looked at the plans, it's a well thought out development.
Any more comments? So do we agree with that then? No objection. Right, thank you. 46 Westwood Road, erection of a single-storey extension to rear. Suggestion is no objection. Agreed. 25 Wood Lane, erection of a single-storey and two-storey extensions to the rear following demolition of an existing rear extension, replacement windows to rear and internal alterations. And then Matt has suggested that although Beverley Town Council reconfirms that it has no objection to this application, it notes with disappointment that this has been submitted retrospectively. Okay. We agreed? Thank you. Beverley Parklands, erection of it's Beverley Parklands amenity land, Beverley Parklands, East Yorkshire. It's a Woodmansey application, this, but we've been consulted because we're right, our boundary is right next to, bang up to it. It's an erection of 43 dwellings and with associated works and infrastructure. Now, this, if we can have a discussion tonight, or we can agree that we let full council decide on this, because Matt has been successful. Yeah, I've got you in getting an extension. Yeah, it's been the request from the 2nd of June to the 9th of June, and that will enable full council to consider this application on the 7th. But if members so wish, we can agree or disagree, object tonight, and then Matt can submit that. But with it being 43 dwellings, I would suggest that other members of council would probably like to have an input into this. Ian, and then you, David.
It's been quite an emotive subject, hasn't it? Because there's a lot of preparatory work gone down and trees gone down.
Yeah.
And I'm sure other members of council may be wanting to voice their opinion, but yeah, it isn't acceptable the way it's been done. At least they put a submission in, but they've cleared a lot of trees already. So yeah, I would agree that full council is the right place.
Yeah. I mean, I do know there has been a lot of objections by residents close by. David Tucker.
agree with Ian. I think it should go to full council for all the reasons he's mentioned. But I think
Yeah.
also the general issue that we should be discussing is, it talks here about infrastructure. I mean, infrastructure no doubt will just be water, sewage, power and drainage. What we really should be considering is the whole of this area, which is continuing to be developed, what sort of infrastructure it does need to have on there in order to support people, you know, in that region, because they're being built with nothing. They're just being built with houses on the edge of a bypass. So, you know, I think there are issues of parks, playing areas, schools, shops, you know, a whole range of things that we should be thinking about with these 2,400 houses that are going on down there.
Yeah, Matt, whilst we're on about this, you know, I've looked at the local plan, and it's mind-boggling really what you see when you look at the local plan. I see Matt Sheckett nodding his head in agreement with me, because the other side of the bypass, the southern bypass, immediately south of that, all that land from one end to the other is in the local plan designated for housing. So you can see what's going to happen. That road will just become, the bypass will no longer be a bypass, it'll be just a service route to those housing, rather large housing estates. What I would like to suggest to members that we get an East Riding officer, senior officer, to come to this meeting to attend, because I'm unsure about what is actually happening on Woodmansey, that all that land. I don't know what the amenity area is going to be made available. I don't know what schools, shops, doctors, dentists, etc., is planned, if any of those are planned. What I can remember is about 5-6 years ago, we had some consultants come and attended one of our meetings, and you realised they got the wrong council. It was East Riding they should have been talking to. But nevertheless, they came with all these super duper ideas and on paper plans, and there was some large swathes of open amenity area. Well, I don't see any of that being talked about, but what I do see is large swathes of open countryside being built on, but I haven't seen anything come, you know, on actually on paper in means of this is what we've got plans for here, this is what's going to be planned for there. And also there's a question of the footbridge which was promised over the railway line. When's that going to happen? To link both the east and westernmost of those houses, and then also the park and ride. And I would like an officer, a senior officer, to come to one of these meetings to talk about what is planned. But before that, I would like members of this committee to be circulated with a local plan, an up-to-date revised copy of the local plan, because I don't know where I'm at with it. There's that many bits of paper. I just don't know. And I'm also told as well, I know we've slightly digressed, but it's still to do with planning, that there is what they call land grab, and ward members, those who's on the planning committee, do get to see what the officers are thinking and what land they're going to make available. I would like, such as our town council, to be consulted because we are the first tier of local government. We're very, very local, and we represent the residents of Beverley just like the ward members do. But I mean, I do understand that this does happen from time to time. They see what officers are suggesting. That's not at the Eastern Area Planning. That's at the strategic area planning. Ian, and then Claire.
I would say when the Strada Homes and the other people put in the first talk of the development that sort of backs on towards Spark Mill and all that, they had an open day for the public. They had a very good plan, but with that whole development, we find ourselves with half a dozen different developers, including this one, which is Home, which is Beverley based and from the Embers of Stepney, actually. I think you're right. We need an idea of the coordinated plan because there are so many different developers doing their own little thing in their plot. So it would be good if we were able to have a word with somebody for planning.
Claire, thank you, Ian.
Does that mean they're going to build the other side of Minster Way bypass eventually then?
Eventually they will do, yeah.
Right.
Scary.
Does that mean though, do you think that they'll eventually have another rail halt there between Beverley and Cottingham?
Who knows? That's why it's a good point, is that, Claire?
It makes you wonder why they're building there, because it's too convenient, isn't it? For, you know. Yeah.
Well, that's a couple of valid points you've made there, Claire. And this is one reason that if we could get an officer, a senior officer to this meeting, you could ask that officer them 2 points and 2 or 3 points you've just raised.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I don't think we're going to be able to get someone to come and speak on this application at full council. One reason being it's quite a big issue, and there's that meeting has a lot on with the AGAN, etc. What I could try and organise is not a public meeting like one of these meetings, but a separate meeting to which all councillors could be invited to, and try and get an East Riding officer to come and give an update of the wider strategic plan for.
No, Matt, I didn't want you to invite the officer to come to full council to discuss this with us, this planning application. I said aside of this application, we'd like an officer to come to a future meeting where, and as you rightly pointed out, all members of council can be invited because it's an important issue that's taking place over the south of Beverley, and I think it would be good for other members of the council which are not members of this planning committee to have an input of their thoughts and ideas, like Claire's just mentioned.
Yeah, as I was going to say, Mr. Chair, but I'll try, although I can't promise this because it needs the other officers he's riding, to try and get it before the 7th of June, because if councillors are making a decision on this application on the 7th of June, it'd be useful to have that meeting before then, to help better inform. If we can't, I'll try and arrange it, probably not as a PPS meeting, but as a separate meeting just to look at the overall strategic plan that the East Riding is putting in place and ask for an update.
That's fine, Matt. David?
I think as Matt says, it's going to be very tight to get this particular application in before then, so we might need to just deal with that separately. I'm thinking about the wider issue here of the whole of that region and wondering whether the importance of that would it would be sensible to include Woodmansea on a joint presentation to both councils as to what on earth is going on down there, so that we might form a view together. We'd be stronger together than we would be on our own, I would imagine.
Yeah, good point, David. I don't know how we're going to work that, but anyhow.
I could if I liaise with Councillor Estelle We can look at the potential of holding a joint meeting. I'll just try and get something booked in as soon as possible, and then we can look at who to potentially get there. It might be that we invite a rep from Woodmansey Parish Council, and so we're not stepping on their feet, but we're welcoming them in. Because whilst as we say, whilst the application isn't actually in Beverley, it's still close to Beverley, and the impact of these developments on the infrastructure of Beverley, we need to be part of it.
But like we've said in the past, Matt, and I don't have to remind members, whatever development takes down there, it's not going to impact Woodmansey Village. It's going to definitely impact Beverley, and so therefore it's in Beverley's interest and our interest that we see there's the right provision of whatever there is, amenity land, infrastructure. I mean, we had a discussion on roads. I think I can remember Claire and David, Ian being at that meeting where we said there was a building of two. There was a roadway in, and one half of that roadway was, I don't know, Persimmon, say, and the other half was Linden, and they were both completely different designs. And we said if they could make the entrance homes more or less similar, then that would be acceptable. And that I think that was taken into consideration. But it's things like that. It's the other things though that I'm talking about, like infrastructure, road, amenity area, and schools, doctors, dentists, etc., shopping. You see, because there was talk a few years ago that there would be an extension to Beverley Leisure Centre across that edge, and we don't hear of that. So that's the thing. That's what I would like to.
I think these strategies should be able to answer a lot of those questions, because it's all a huge jigsaw with certain elements being built to fund other elements. So, for example, the building of houses and sale of houses will afford the developers the funds to pay the East Riding for the bridge. So there's all domino effect. So if you leave that with me, Mr. Chair, I'll sort out a meeting with an officer.
And also, Matt, whilst you're on with that officer, whoever it is, could you ask that we would like each member of this PPS committee to have a copy of the local plan, so we can refer to it.
I've just emailed all members of the committee a link to it from the East Riding website, so you'll be able to look at that later on.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, Ian.
One final thing, I think they're in the process of creating a new plan. Something that I saw Ward Councillor Paul Nicholson talking about, that there are plans afoot for a new plan, which would be nice if it could be adopted and enforced. But anyway,
for members' awareness, the current plan is from 2012 to 2029, adopted 2016. That's the plan that's currently in action, in that active plan.
But you see, my point is, members, is that we don't have any input as a parish council. We as a town council, it would be nice for the East Riding strategic committee to say, right, we're going to go out to consultation with this. We never get, to my recollection, we've never had a plan sent to us, and with the like you'll see that it's hashed out which, and it's color coded what areas are going to be built on, and it replicate, the color replicates, say, pink for housing, yellow for industrial purposes, and all that lot. So yeah, okay, thank you. 7 Minster Moorgate. This is in conservation area, and it's to fell one number acacia tree due to the tree outgrowing and very little the very small rear garden. Yeah, it's outgrowing the rear garden, which is very small. We don't have any objection to this. The suggestion is providing it's carried out at a time that will have least impact on wildlife, and that again, the removal of this tree, we suggest to the planning committee at East Riding, or the officer, that our usual stance is for the removal of one tree, 2 trees of a suitable age and variety will be planted as replacements. Is that agreed? Thank you. 34 Coltman Avenue. Again, a certificate of lawfulness for the erection of a single-story extension to the rear and alterations to existing sun lounge, and we have no objection to that. That is a suggestion. No. 100 Chestnut Avenue, construction of a dormer window to the front. The suggestion is no objection. Agreed. Yeah. 36 Manor Road, erection of a single and 2-story extension to the side and rear, with porch extension to the front. Beverley Town Council has no objection. No objection. No. 43 Burden Road, erection of a 2-story extension to the side and rear following demolition of existing extension to rear. And again, we have no objection. Agreed. Over to you, Mr. Tucker, for item 7, relationships between Beverley Town Council and the pasture masters.
I've had 2 fairly lengthy discussions with the chair of Pasture Masters and another one just the other day, just to try and get the ball rolling in this area. I think we're all aware of the fact that the Pasture Masters are a very long, well-established, historically independent group. I think we also can see the benefits of working closely with all groups in the town, as we've been trying to do already with the Civic Society fairly successfully in terms of tree planting. Unfortunately, the Pasture Masters haven't had any meetings since the COVID restriction issues, and this goes back to well over a year. They aren't having any online meetings, so decisions are not really being made. The chair can't make that decision on his own, but they're going to be having a meeting towards the end of June. I guess it's going to be a physical meeting where that's going to be put on the agenda. And my suggestion is that we have a meeting, an online meeting, if we can do, and just discuss ways in which we can try to support the work of the Pasture Masters, ways in which we can help them with any issues that they face. I think we all know that we wouldn't recommend Pasture Masters telling us what to do any more than they would recommend. They would be happy with us telling them what to do. So, you know, we tried a very fine line, but I feel that we've made progress. I feel there's an understanding. I raised some questions of how, as a group together, for example, we could get funding for trees. You know, we have some funding of our own. We might get additional funding. And the chair of the Pasture Masters said they're certainly looking to put more trees on Westwood. They're also looking to put more trees on Figham and Swinemore. and trees that had been put down there a number of years ago in conjunction with the Civic Society just haven't taken. So I said it might be a question of spending a bit more money, getting larger trees and getting better protection against animals, and that might well work. So that seemed to be taken positively. I also raised the issue when we got talking about Swinemoor of the proposed development of the garage on the roundabout there, and the objections that we would have to that. And the pasture masters clearly would object fairly strongly to that as well, in terms of, you know, there's bound to be drainage issues, pollution issues, things like that. So I said that was an example of a way in which, if working together, you know, the Beverley Town Council, the pasture masters, Beverley Civic Society, we could perhaps be a lot stronger than working individually, and that was well received as well. So I feel that by approaching it very gently and in a positive way, I feel that, you know, we might make some progress as to how we can support and assist and work together, and that I hope will be ongoing sometime after June with a bit of luck. So it's not massive progress to report, Chair, but I think it's a step in the right direction in what will be a long job. And my suggestion at this stage would be that when we do start working, hopefully with the pasture masters, that we need to make sure that the first projects are very collegial, very well judged, and are very successful. I think once we go from that base, we can make further progress.
Thank you, David, for that. That's very well done. We're making progress there. I see thumbs up from Ian, and I think Claire wants to say something. Very positive, that, David, and hopefully it'll be a positive outcome from their meeting in June. So thanks for that. Claire?
Oh, what can we do that then? We can just give them some money to buy trees. That's something we agree to do.
Well, no, not really. I mean, there is other ways of you know, getting the trees. But if council's mindful, then yes, we could do. But at the moment, it's early days yet, and so yeah, I've got you, David and Matt. It's early days yet, so I suggest that before we start allocating money to whoever, the pasture masters on this occasion, we should just leave it and see what the outcome is, because they might be able to get some trees via East Riding, because with the large swathes of land that the pasture masters are responsible for, comes with it the East Riding. There's more and more demand on senior authorities, and in our case East Riding, to plant trees from central government. And so it might well be the case that the pasture masters could well be on a winner with East Riding, because of the huge amount of land that the pastures take on Westwood and on Figham and Swinemoor. So yeah, but as David says, it's very, very early days yet, and we'll see how it progresses from the meeting when they report back. And I think I'm right in saying that no doubt David will have had a discussion with the chairman, and the chairman will have said, "I'll let you know what the outcome is." Yeah. Matt, and then you, David.
Yeah, on the matter of any more trees in town, there's a project that we'll be bringing forward to full council in June. I have a meeting on Thursday with, I think, Councillor Tucker, Councillor Johnson, and the Civic Society and the Minister to look at a wider project regarding tree planting, with more information then be put to Town Council on the 7th of June for Council to discuss and potentially officially agree to be part of it. So that sort of project will hopefully move on within the next few weeks.
Good. David Tucker, then David Ardsley.
Just responding to Claire's point, I mean, good points about how we do that very quickly. I mean, what Peter said in terms of applications nationally, and I was pointing out to the chair that if you get an application just from the pasture masters, you know, that should be reasonably strong. But if you get a joint application where Beverley Town Council and the pasture masters, say, and Civic Society go in together, you know, you got more chance of getting it. The other thing I pointed out to the chair of pasture masters was that, you know, we do have a grants process, and that they could apply in the normal way that other groups do for grant funding, and we could consider it in that way. And, you know, they weren't aware of that, but by talking about it, you know, we make them aware of opportunities that there are. So there's two avenues.
Yeah. David Ardsley.
Right. I'd like to suggest a third avenue, a further avenue to add to those, which is that we try to get Bishop Burton College involved, because they have students in agriculture, and getting them to answer the question, what sort of trees would suit the pastures, both because they are pastures and therefore they must be suitable for cattle and sheep, etc., but also the nature of the soil there, and perhaps looking a little into the future as to how the trees might survive global warming.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah, we'll take that into consideration, Matt. Yeah. Okie dokie. So we'll move on to item 9. Thanks for that, David Tucker, for that. Thank you. Item 9, town maintenance contract. Oh no, sorry. Item 8, composting toilet, and on Kitchen Lane. Matt.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this has changed a bit since the agenda was sent out. The group aren't actually asking to put it in place yet. It's currently, want for a better term, a flat pack, and they're wanting to just put it together, still in the compound, to actually build it, which I don't think we need to seek permission on that from us now, because initially it looked like it was to actually site it. Although I will have a conversation with them about, is that the most practical thing to do? It's going to be moved, because it might be more practical actually when it's time to have it ready to build it. But I think I'll have a chat with them, and if it's going to be fine moving it once it's built, I don't see any issue with them doing that.
No.
I'm just thinking the logistics of then moving it. But as far as I'm concerned, that could be done in the compound next week.
Yeah, yeah. Just want to take it out of its packaging and make sure all the bits are there.
Yeah.
You know, when you get a scale extric and you just want to make sure it's all there. Yeah. All right, then. Are we all right with that? Yeah. 9, town maintenance contractors here to receive a short update regarding the initial work of the town maintenance contractors, acting clerk to report, and B, to consider requesting the contractors to carry out a full inventory of the town council assets to help fulfill issues raised by the internal audit. So over to you, Matt. We'll take those two together.
Yeah, so for the first half of it, myself and Libby met with Dan from JB Rural at Spark Mill to have a good chat about the needs, and we put together, and thanks very much to Libby for doing a lot of this, put together a schedule of tasks, because different tasks are different priorities at different times of the year. So now one of the priorities is grass cutting on the allotments. That weather is starting to get warm, that grows very quickly. I've asked them to double the time spent at the skate park, so that bin will be emptied and cleaned up twice a week. They're also doing things like putting the new signs in, notice boards that we need, etc. So there is a list of what they're doing, and then they're the immediate stuff. Then more longer term stuff with a little bit more time, things like checking all the pride flags so we can make sure that they're all in good nick and see how many more we may need for them being installed in shops in August. So all the operational stuff's ongoing. And the second part of it, it's not really considered, it's an operational thing, but because this was highlighted on the internal audits, we're making sure that anything that we're doing to resolve anything that's raised in the internal audit, we've got minuted details of. So the other thing we're asking them to do is to carry out an inventory of all town council equipment and assets. This ranges from the bins. I've given them the map of where all the bins are in town so they can identify the ones with the town crest on, the ones that have a town crest on that are damaged, and the ones that don't have a town crest on, so we can identify which we initially purchased. And also to get them at some point to go through the garage, to go through the lockup, etc. Look at where there's some items that we may not require anymore that could be disposed of, look at what we've actually got. And that's not a short task. It might be something that takes several months that they do as and when, but it's really for the coming year to get a full inventory of everything that we've got.
Yeah, yeah, go on then, Claire.
The litter bins on Riding Fields are in the right state.
Well, I'm sure they'll be picked up as part of the audit process when they go around.
The one on Goodfell Road always gets really full. You could do with another one near that one.
We've just
full of dog poo bags.
But with all respect, Mr. Chair, I'll put bins on the next agenda. We can't make any decision on bins with it not being an agenda item. This was just an update of what the.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
We've just cited a bin on Goodfell Road, Sigston Corner. Yeah.
Yeah.
Friday.
Oh, great. That's okay then. Because the ones on Swinemore Lane are all in good nick and they don't get full.
Yeah. Well, as Matt's brightly pointed out.
Yeah.
There will the asset will that JB Roll are going to do. Matt, whilst we're talking about assets, you said you're going to put litter bins on the next agenda. I mean, we do need it'd be almost impossible as to what bins we purchased, because there is some that we've put which we bought which no longer have the town council crest on. Now, just how we find out who's bought that, I really don't know. I suppose Ian Sugden or somebody at East Riding will be able to help you with that. But
yeah, I think we can eliminate things so we know which ones do. We then pare it down.
Yeah, could we have on the next agenda then? And I'm sure members will agree with me with this. For a new sign for each bin, because the sign now is outdated, so we need to update our signs on the bins. Yeah, okay. Thank you for that then, Matt. Thanks. Number 10, inclusive garden project. You've all had a copy of this. I met Mr. Fisher last Thursday down on Spark Mill. He's definitely interested in what was the field to table allotment plot in the corner there, which is on runs parallel with Spark Mill Lane, runs parallel with our allotments down there, and on there is a shed and a seated area, covered over seated area with a polytunnel, raised beds. They're all overgrown, but what matters yeah, I've got you in. What matters has asked JB Rowe anyhow before this proposal come in, was to go and knock the long grass back, both on that plot and on the Old in Bloom plot. I showed him the two polytunnels on the Old in Bloom plot, and he would be interested possibly in having use of those, but it's only possibly at the moment. But yeah, I would like us to agree this in principle, and yeah, Ian and then Claire.
I would say I fully support everything that's put in the proposal. It was well thought out, nicely documented, very basic, very simple, a very worthwhile project. I would support it wholeheartedly.
Claire?
If they're going to be using Sparkmill as a community, does that mean that they'll need a composting toilet there as well?
No, not really. I mean, I mean, it was a community plot, Claire. There was two. There was yeah. This was the field to table garden, and also the in bloom plot. There's no mention of that at this moment in time. In any case, if they did want their own composting toilet, it would be down to them to find the funding. Like the
yeah, it's just that when I last went to the World Gardens, I noticed she'd got a composting toilet, and they don't have much money at all. I mean, it was basic, but it did the job. Do you know what I mean? It was a hole in the ground with like a proper loo built above it.
Yeah.
So obviously you can get vastly different standards of loo.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Claire. Matt?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think this is a really great project. It's a really positive use of allotment land that we've kept ring fenced for community use. One thing I would suggest is if I liaise with them and maybe suggest, because we've got to make sure everything's right in terms of documentation, insurance and stuff like that, not just from our point of view, but also this group needs to make sure they're fully covered and protected, etc. So my suggestion would be that I write to them explaining the enthusiasm the town council has for this fantastic project, but that we advise that the next step would be maybe for them to meet with Airvas, who will be able to advise them on everything they need in terms of appropriate policies, any appropriate insurance, things like that. Because we've got a duty as the people letting the land that any groups who like this are fully covered in all aspects, and they also need to make sure for themselves as well, for their liability, and to make sure they have all the documents in place. And VAS is the perfect organisation to support them with that.
Is that agreed then? Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that, Matt. Item 11, Saturday market. To discuss the temporary pedestrian area in Saturday marketplace, so as to provide comments and feedback to the East Riding of Yorkshire Council ward members. Council.
Just before people start, Mr. Chair, just so people are aware, we as a town council have only had one communication from a member of the public regarding this, and it was a lady concerned about the reduction of disability parking bays. That's the only direct communication we've had.
Right, thank you. Claire?
I did actually would take a wander down Saturday Market, and the way they moved the big tubs, they moved two of them. They moved sort of into the middle of the market stalls, and the others just formed a barrier so that carvery takeaway van thing had the tables and chairs outside of it, and then the planters down one side, so that there was plenty of seating area as you come out of Dyer Lane. But the only other comment I would make is that a lot of the stalls on the market are empty at the moment. So I hope they'll manage to fill them, because it looked a bit sad, really, and empty.
Right, any more comments? David Tucker, David Hart, yep.
I think Ian had his hand up before me, Chair.
Ian.
It doesn't matter, David, carry on.
I picked up concerns by one particular prominent tradesperson in the town, indicating that it's difficult for people to park and everybody's complaining about it. I've been down quite a few times during the week, and I may have been fortunate the times I went down. There have always been 3 or 4 parking places at least available, and if people cruise around, they can usually pick something up. I think it's important for us to all go down and just get a look and a feel for it. The people I've talked to who've been luckily sitting outside on a warm sunny day, and there's not been many this last week, but there was before, absolutely loving it. You know, what a great idea it is, and they're really very, very positive towards it. So I think we need to be getting a feel for it. The only other point I'd like to raise is that I've talked to a couple of taxi drivers, one I know quite well, and I think I said I'll go and have a conversation with them at some later stage. I think we need to sort of pick up their concerns about potential loss of parking spaces. I didn't fully understand it. I didn't have time to listen. But I think if we can take that on board, it might make us understand a bit better. And I'm sure Ian probably understands it better than I do. So those are my only observations at this stage.
Ian.
The taxi question, traditionally the rank from outside the Green Dragon to Central 42, alongside of what is now Virgin Money towards the Queen's Head, the East Riding licensing have said that people can't do that. It is causing some confusion, not something I'm involved with these days, but it is difficult for overflow taxis to rank up because they've been advised to use the parking and you know, nobody knows who's going to be first in line to join the rank. The point I would make, and comments that I've had from a couple of friends who have businesses, it's great for the King's Head, it's great for Harrison's, and it's great for any of the businesses down that end, but other people that have food provision in the marketplace have been disadvantaged because all these places that are next to that particular plot can have their tables and chairs outside, but it doesn't benefit all the businesses, only those that are in the near proximity. And I don't know what we can do about that, unless you're talking about coming up where all the disabled bays are, or creating a separate area. I don't know. The idea of the come the glorious weather, the alfresco dining thing is a great idea, especially in the current climate. But it really does only benefit those businesses that are adjacent to it.
Thank you, Ian. Any more comments? No. Okay, well, Matt, what do you want to? Can't hear you, Matt. You have to unmute.
Here we go. Yeah, from the comments that have been made, I think the idea is for us to pass them to the ward members, as part of their fact finding is how it's going, because it is only temporary, although it's temporary for quite a few months. But any comments will be fed into the development of it. So the summary in the minutes will forward to the ward members.
Agreed. Thank you. Item 12 then, Town Council office telephone system, and there's a request from the acting town clerk to seek new internal telephone system. Matt?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, it's just our current telephone system is relatively antiquated. It's not terribly easy to change messages, etc. Systems these days, in fact, systems have been around for quite a while. They're operated through a platform online where you can quite easily change the messages, change where they ring to. If there's one member of staff in and not in the others, it'll only go to that phone, etc. So it's just more to inform the council that it's been something that the council agreed quite a while ago, but with COVID and everything, we didn't get on with it. Over the next few months, I will be looking at speaking to other councils who have different systems and try and get some quotes for upgraded telephone systems.
When Alexander Graham Bell installed it, he assured us that it was state of the art.
Matt, you say next few months. I don't expect to be here this time next year, and we're still on the same telephone system. I mean, if it's a need, then I would suggest we just crack on and get it done.
It is need, Mr. Chair, but we still are in some restrictions with COVID, and we will have to have people into the office to give quotes, to look and pull things around. And because it might be quite costly, I'll have to go back to potentially policy. So that's why I said next 3 or 4 months, because it's something that will take a little bit of time to get through. I'd like to get it done by something potentially installed by September, October time. But it depends on who can come out to see us and what support we'll need from PES policy regarding the cost of it.
I think the whole committee is of a mind that you should crack on in terms of opening up that dialogue and progress as far as possible. We'll take it to whichever committee we need to.
Yeah. If that's a proposal, then Ian, I would second that. And are we all in agreement with that? Yeah. Yeah. So there you go, Matt. We've agreed that you already look at getting a suitable system, get quotes, and then take it to whichever committee, policy or full council, and that should speed things up for you, rather than ping-ponging backwards and forwards. We've already agreed it tonight. Yeah. Okay then, Angel Square number 13, bicycle racks. Clark to report again.
The East Riding's got some funding and putting bicycle racks in there. Once they've got their idea of the sort of things they want to put in, they'll get back to me for town council's comments. But there isn't actually anything to report at this point in time until they've done that.
David?
I'm not entirely sure that there's anybody from East Riding Council who deals with cycle racks who actually cycles. As a regular cyclist, the nature of some of them are really sort of counterproductive to people who want to tie their bikes up. And I think before we actually get into the actual type of thing, we need to be having discussions as to what they might be and getting some advice from people who use bikes. Often they're too high, and they're too high to sort of chain your bike to. Secondly, they're often too close together and you can't actually get your bike in easily. So there's a whole load of issues surrounding it that I think we need to make sure we've checked out before they actually do it. I'm more than happy to go along and give advice. And whilst I'm on it, I'm just remembering, I think there's a number of bike racks around the town which we need to look at, Matt, because over the years, people have, I think, chained motorbikes to them. There are huge, great locks outside them. For instance, the one outside Boys, and these great big chains have been there for an awful long time. So I think we need to make a note of them. And where anything has been there for, say, more than a month, it's just cut off and removed, because they're a tripping hazard, really.
Yeah. Okay, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You got the gist of that?
Yeah, so I was trying to find an email about it as well, but I
Right.
can't find it at this point in time.
Thank you, David. Anybody else? No. Right. Item 14, parish. Sorry, Ian.
I know, just item 14, I note that on the agenda for that meeting is an update on the plan.
Yeah.
The planning plan. So that might get round the questions we've been asking earlier on today.
Yeah. Well, I know I've been in the past. I would like to attend one of those Zoom call meetings. Have we got any others? David Tucker, David Ardsley.
I'd very much like to, but I'm afraid Tuesdays
Right.
are difficult for me, especially with my new obligations, I'm afraid.
What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I'd like to attend one of them, but if I go around those who said they want to attend, say which one they want. So, Councillor Estelle, are you the 22nd of June at 5 p.m. or the 24th of June at 10 a.m.?
Yeah, 22nd.
Yep. And Councillor Tucker, which would you like? Councillor Tucker, your mic's off.
The 5 p.m. one, which is
Yeah, the 24th of June.
yeah,
No, the 5 p.m. is the
22nd.
Yeah. So that's 2 for the 5 p.m. Councillor Horsley.
Yeah, I'd take the morning one, the 10 a.m. Is that the 26th?
That's the 24th. Yeah. And
24th.
Councillor Wildy, are you interested?
Which is the one David Horsley's doing? 10 a.m. on the
24th of June.
yeah, I'll do that one.
24th. Yeah. So that's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one's perfect for me.
I'd
Yeah,
very much
that's fine. I shall email tomorrow with those places.
very
Okay,
much
Thank you.
like to
Thank
do
you.
it at the moment,
you.
with especially commuting out of Hull City Centre. There's no way I'd get back for 5. So
No.
I'm sure that if there are any presentations, and they provide us with copies, I can circulate them to all councillors.
that's kind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Matt. Item 15, library gardens. Right. Just to make members aware, you know where the gardens are. Champney Road, to the right as you're looking at it from Champney Road, the land immediately to the right. The trees are overgrown, it's dark, it's dingy, it's rough in places. A former member of this council has contacted a present member, Duncan, and he subsequently had a conversation with me. Anyway, I've had a conversation with this former member, and what they're prepared to do is to put up a 4-figure sum to assist the garden being done something with, and I understand that possibly yes, Claire.
There's a piece of round the back of there used to be a bit of land with like a heap of mud on it. You've got the library garden,
Yeah,
and then you've got the library.
that
then
includes it. This
That's it.
includes that.
So what's happened to that great big lump that was?
I don't know. I don't know, Claire.
Oh, because I've such sentimental memories of the library garden. I used to take my
Yeah.
kids there when they were little all the time.
Yeah.
It'd be
David
nice if you had
Ardsley.
a cafe in there. Can we have a cafe in there?
David Ardsley.
But you are quite right. There is that area, as you now look at it in a way, it's beyond the library car park. And it is important that we don't forget about that bit, because it's the bit that's not visible to most people most of the time.
Thank you. Right. So anyway, to finish off, what I was saying, and that is, I think that we as a town council should approach East Riding and seek their approval and agreement that we can instigate, along with working with the Lions, the Civic Society, and anybody else, and that obviously there is it will be a fairly big project, no doubt, but given we could do a good reasonable job and making it look look better than what it is, and making it more user friendly than it is now. So without going into too much detail, David.
Just a thought, Chair. Could we link it to something which commemorates a particular time? You know, something that's linked into a royal celebration, something like that. You know, so
he's already this former member of this council has already suggested.
Right. Okay.
There's a big event happening next year, so they'd like it to be named after that big event. So therefore, with all this in mind, I would like to move that we ask the acting clerk to write to Alan Menzies with this idea, and that we have a dialogue with Alan about this proposal. I think that they're limited funding anyhow, and they've got better things to look after. Not that they don't look after the gardens, they do, but this project would be very fitting for Beverley Town Council, and you know, the other groups that would be assisting us. It would be a team effort, not just Beverley Town, and I think that the suggestion that has been put forward is one of significant importance, that we should approach Alan Menzies. So I would move that from the chair.
I think that the steps with that, Mr. Chair, would be for me to liaise with Alan to see if that the East Riding would be in agreement in principle, and then we can then report that back to full council, and full council can decide which direction to take, who to get involved, to then set up a meeting with the interested parties to progress that.
Well, I think I agree with that, Matt. But David seconded the idea. I think that if we could set up a meeting with Alan to float the idea to him, and to see if get a feeling if they're interested, and then we say that there's potential grants available externally, and what have you, and then we can feed all this information to full council rather than it dragging on for months and months. We just take it to full council and get an agreement.
Well, with all due respect, Mr. Chair, that's what I was suggesting about dragging it on for months and months. I made a simple email to Alan saying, would the East Riding be mindful to consider it? And if he says yes, take it to full council, rather than having to schedule a meeting with him to then have another meeting to approve it to go to full council. That would actually shorten it down and give us something on paper.
Yeah, all right, Matt, that's fine. I didn't mean you dragging it out. I mean the way things happen.
Yeah, that's why I think if we can do it quickly by email rather than set up a meeting, we can get there quicker.
Yeah, do that then. Yeah, David.
I think in theory that should be much more efficient. However, Alan has been very busy, presumably lately, because we've had a couple of other correspondences in regard to toilet provision, which we've had no reply from. So I would suggest, Matt, that we give it a time schedule, and if it's not, if there's not a response, I think 2 weeks is a very reasonable time for a professional to respond to a message from a town council. If we have nothing within that period of time, we then request a formal meeting of an hour of his time where we can discuss it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
David Mosley.
Yeah, we should be aware that the East Riding seem to have long-term plans, medium-term plans to further extend, further extend the Treasure House Library buildings And that might involve some of that land.
Well, that's possible, but from what I've heard, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they've had their ideas thwarted somewhat, but anyhow, we can see. Right. Claire, did you want to say something? No?
I just thought that that little piece of land, you should have a little cafe there in there somehow. If you could extend the library so that there's a cafe there, that's what I think you should do with it. What's Beverley commemorating next year then? You're going to tell me? You mentioned Beverley was commemorating something next year. It's not 1300 years since St John of Beverley died. Is it something else? Or is it the Queen's Diamond Jubilee?
No, that's already passed.
Oh, right, okay.
It's the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Yeah. And the idea was, Claire, that these, if this is a success, this idea can go ahead. We've got the Coronation Garden, and this could be called the Platinum Jubilee Garden. We've got the Diamond Jubilee Garden on corner of Railway Street and New Walkergate. Yep. Okay. Right. Okie dokie then. Right then, that's that. Thank you very much for your attention. And